Hey everybody, this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. Except this month, we're talking about the movies and TV that we loved after the first date. Stuff that we've seen separately and one of us is still sharing with the other. But they were made after 2003. And this week, I was made to watch Arrival.
Yes. We realized that sooner or later, Marian would run out of movies before 2003.
I haven't run out.
This is to delay the inevitable when you run out. Only because, I am a movie buff. Was at one time in my headcanon going to become a screenwriter and or director, when I was like 20.
When I run out of movies, I'm just going to make you listen to Sarah McLachlan albums.
Awesome.
That's a lot. Anyway, awesome. Arrival
is the 2016, of course, Denis Villeneuve. I don't know how you say his name. Everybody seems to say it different.
Villeneuve. I think.
Everybody seems to agree though that his first name, which is clearly spelled Dennis, is Denny. I don't know.
En français.
Sure. So, anyways, it's stars Amy Adams and your favorite actor, apparently,
Michael Stuhlbarg. Oh no, my not
Jeremy
favorite.
Renner.
Yeah.
As well as Forrest Whitaker and who?
Michael Stuhlbarg. Stool something. Stoolbag. Stuhlberg.
Man.
I don't know. Arnold Rothstein from Boardwalk Empire. He's terrifying.
Okay.
In almost everything.
He's, I don't think, ever even identified by name in this movie.
No.
And is almost exclusively shot in profile for the first 90 minutes of the movie. And no one's making a big deal that he's there, but he's clearly somebody from the CIA. So I like to think of him as being the CIA guy.
I think that's fine. Just CIA guy.
Yeah.
He would probably like it better that way.
Oh, yeah. So if you've never seen this movie, first of all, go and watch it because there's no way to talk about this movie without spoiling the movie. And it has a significant twist. I hesitate to call it a twist, but anyway, the quick plot synopsis is that aliens land on Earth. They land in 12 different sites across the world, and we got to figure out what the heck's going on with them. And Amy Adams plays Louise, who is a linguist and a college professor, and she's brought in to solve the mystery. Or to help try to solve the mystery of how to communicate with these aliens. Things go on. A Rush Limbaugh / every Fox News host /
you said Alex Jones when they were
guy convinces some military guys, indirectly convinces some military guys to attack the aliens, and things go weird. And it is, as the Whovians say, it's a timey-wimey resolution to the movie. And it's wow. The kitten is trying to climb the blinds. Okay. And she's probably fine. And I think the thing about this movie is it so if you watch scholarly YouTube videos or you read about this movie, they all or several of them are going to name drop something called the Kuleshov effect, which is something that was brilliantly demonstrated by Alfred Hitchcock in an experiment that he did where he took the exact same shot of himself. One is just him looking into the camera like he's looking at something, and then the next shot cut something between it, and then the next shot is him slowly smiling.
Okay.
He takes one set of these shots and he puts a mother playing with a baby in a park in between.
Oh.
Smile. The next shot he puts a lady in a bathing suit. Wow.
Okay.
So the Kuleshov effect is a term that basically means you will attach meaning to something you see based on what comes before or after it.
Okay.
And this applies not just to cinema, but to words. What does the word hand mean? It can mean any number of things.
Sure.
You don't understand it until you have the context of either what comes before it, handshake, or what comes after it. You need hands up. You need to know. I can't just say the word hand and you understand. And this movie starts with a big Kuleshov effect. It starts with this montage of Amy Adams' character Louise with her daughter being born, growing up, and sometime in her teen years contracting and dying from a rare disease. And then the next thing you see is her walking through the halls of the college that she works at. And we connect those two things.
Mm-hmm. You assume that
this is post the death of her daughter, and she is you read her body language and her behavior as very sort of out of it. And just like she's not, like there's stuff going on in the background behind her, and she's barely even acknowledging it. So you create this narrative for yourself in your own head that she is very much grieving. And that's reinforced by her being shown at home in a pretty, by herself in a pretty sad sort of situation where she's sleeping like snuggled against a body pillow, and she's drinking wine and talking to her mom and saying, "No, trust me, I'm okay. I'm fine." So that's the start from which the movie kicks off, and all the rest of the events happen with that in your mind. And that's a very important thing to carry forward, because it ties into all of the rest of the movie, the themes that are involved, and the resolution, and for me, the biggest emotional part of the movie. It all ties together. So just to put it out there so that we can talk about it regularly, like normally for the rest of the podcast, what you see in the beginning is not happening right before the beginning of the movie. It is happening in the future, a future that has not happened yet, that is revealed to her over the course of the movie as she works with these aliens and learns their language. The aliens communicate in these circular symbols, and the symbols happen all at once. So they make an illusion in the movie of like, imagine if you could write a sentence with both hands at the same time from opposite ends. You'd have to know everything you were going to say and the structure of the words and the spacing and everything. So time tends to mean less to you if you can say an entire sentence all at once, if you can have every part of the thought of a sentence all at once. And that ties into the alien language. And as she starts to learn the alien language, she starts to perceive time as they do. And she starts to get these flashes, which first time through appear to be flashbacks. She gets these flashes of her daughter, different interactions, different things happening. And then as she masters their language, she begins to transcend time in the same way that we do, or in the same way that the aliens, which are called heptapods, do. That's kind of like the broad strokes of the movie. This is probably a discussion for me that that's going to be more about themes and content or less about content of the movie and more about the themes and more of a discussion of how things are perceived and what the movie for me brings up. So it'll probably be a little bit stranger than our usual podcast, because it's not just going to be, look, that guy, he held that guy up and said, "I lied," and then dropped him,
There's no slapstick.
Right.
None.
So just first off, just give me your fresh off watching it. What did you think?
Oh gosh.
And it's okay if you didn't like it. You don't have to like it.
I wouldn't say I disliked it. Well, because I'm a big old language nerd, I in a very extended cut, I would have liked to see how they figured out all the language. I would have liked to see the nerdy linguistics stuff. Like, I'm by no means a linguist, but
and
I would have found that very interesting. And so I was a little bummed that it wasn't, we just skipped like, oh, it's a month later and we've got this figured out.
Yeah. So there's actually a story about that from the making of the movie. They had that in the script. They had this just droning sequence of teaching them word after word after word. Like, there's a flash in the movie that starts to show symbols and what they mean in English. And there was apparently a droning scene that was just, here, this and this and this. And the screenwriter was in with some of the producers or whatever. And he was like, they were like, why do you need this in the movie?
Yeah.
This is boring. It's not like, I understand that it might be needed, but it's boring and it is not fun to watch. And he's like, okay, here's why we need this. And he almost word for word does the scene that she does on the whiteboard, where he's like, I can't just say to an alien, what is your purpose on Earth?
Yeah.
They don't understand do they understand the concept of your, uppercase your, as in the heptapods, as a group, as a civilization, your as in Joe heptapod number 1? Do they understand the meaning of purpose? Or are their thoughts structured in such a way that nothing has a purpose? It all just happens organically. Mm-hmm. Do they understand, do they even think of this planet as a planet? Is this Earth? Can I teach them? And they're like, that should be in the movie instead of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why there's that whiteboard scene where she's like, look, here's the reason that I have to explain to them basic words and treat them like they're preschoolers.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and I thought it was funny when Weber is like, these are all preschool words. I'm like, that's because the first words that we learn are the most basic ones. No one needs to know the word esoteric when you're starting out. Well, so one of my book clubs over the summer read Project Hail Mary, which is by the author of The Martian. And I think based on the success of The Martian, it was immediately optioned to be a movie. Yeah. And there's a lot of that in there, to a human communicating with an alien who does not, who speaks, but not in any language that we can understand. And they have to figure out how to communicate with each other. And the book goes into some detail about how they do that. The human is a science professor, I think. Mm-hmm. And so he approaches it more from a math background, not as a linguist would. But I'm interested to see how that is portrayed on screen. So I was thinking of that when I was watching this. I was like, well, it worked on the page. I found that interesting, but then also me, big old language nerd. So
well, and I think also, this movie comes from a short story in a collection called "Story of Your Life" by Ted Chiang, I think it is, and it's a pretty tight story. It kind of feels like it came from a short story, and so I bet if you were to read that short story, it would lack some of that extra depth that a novel could go into. But 100%. Like, I think there's something super interesting about the actual process of teaching someone who has no idea what our language is, how to communicate. Yeah. And I think there was some cool stuff in there that they kind of just drop in there, like Ian, who is a scientist of some I forget.
What the heck was he doing there? Because after the first little bit, his job seemed to be to support her, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was some sort of astrophysicist or something, whatever, because there's weird stuff going on with gravity and stuff inside of the pod. Mm-hmm. So I don't 100% know why was he valuable, but I mean, once it started, I think he proved his value. But there's a point in there where they drop in that he was the first one to figure out that what they're verbalizing isn't what they're writing. That they make these noises
so the dolphin sounds or whatever are not real. Oh,
it's not what they're saying. Yeah. And he was the first one to put that together, that their verbal language, because very early on, Luis is like, I will never be able to decipher their language. And even if I do, there's no way we can speak it. Mm-hmm. So that's when she gets the idea. She grabs a whiteboard on the second or third time she goes in with the aliens and starts trying to communicate in a written language, and that's the breakthrough, which is interesting. I don't know why the aliens weren't just immediately communicating in a written language, because their whole purpose of being there is to pass on their language to humans. But anyway.
Well, back to what was my gut reaction? The other thing is, the whole concept of timey-wimey, where your future self comes back and affects your past self, and that's how your past self knows what to do. In the one of the Harry Potter movies, it was that, and the sci-fi book Kindred is like that, and I feel like there's several other things that annoys me, and I'm not sure if it annoys me because I find it feels just like a shortcut, like a lazy shortcut, or if it just messes with my head and I'm annoyed because it makes my head hurt. I don't know. Yeah. But this feels like a little bit of that. And I was kind of like, oh, really? Is that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's it's tied into the resolution, but I think it's also unavoidable because this is what the aliens are here to do.
Yeah.
They're here to give us a language that will allow us to perceive all of our lives linearly.
Well, okay, I guess then that's the other. So, like, what did the aliens do for Earth? Did they stop all wars forever? Was that what we were meant to?
Well, right. Well, so I think the idea, at least in the short term, is that because Luis learns their language, she's able to perceive her life forwards and backwards all at once. And she, right before China and those who follow them, Pakistan, Russia, are about to basically declare war on the alien ships because a message was interpreted or misinterpreted that said where the aliens indicated they were here to give a weapon. And Louise, of course, being a linguist, is like, weapon can mean many things. They can be confused about tool versus weapon.
Yeah, even and I was like, give. That's so many.
Right, also give.
Well, right.
And
Even as a non-linguist, I was like, just open a thesaurus.
Right, and in that
options.
moment, Ian points out they may want something from us. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that the aliens need our help in 3,000 years, so they need us to still be here. So I guess it's that once Louise learns the language and she remembers or pre-remembers this conversation that she has with the leader of the Chinese military. And, he says, oh, right before everything went wrong, you called me on my personal number that no one has. And you said something to me that changed my mind. You told me my wife's final words, which are, and he whispers them to her. And I can't remember it now, but what she actually said was something some anti-war, on the battlefield there are no hero, well, whatever. It's like a bit of poetry about how, nothing good comes from war. And there's a great story that the screenwriter tells about Villeneuve getting in touch with him saying, we're about to shoot this scene. What does she say? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, just says something in Mandarin. He's like, right. And I've got the Mandarin translator right here. We got to figure out what to teach Amy Adams to say.
Oh, God.
He's like, oh, God. He's like, all right, give me afternoon. And he's like, I come up with this. I start reading stuff and I come up with this thing and I send it to him. And he's like, this is perfect. Amazing. And he's like, I show up to the premiere and I watch the movie and they don't even subtitle what was he said in Mandarin. He's like, they don't even subtitle.
I think we didn't even. Oh yeah, no, we heard her saying it, but we didn't hear. Okay,
he whispers it into her ear, kind of right as she's saying it to him in our present.
Yeah,
which is about when the attack's about to happen. And I guess that proves to him that what the aliens are bringing is actually a gift because there's no way anyone else could know that. And their language is the gift, and he pulls back his troops, and all of the people who follow them do the same.
It was a little neat there.
Sure. But to me, that's not what this movie's about. Like, you could that's all that can be as campy as it wants to be, because that's not what this movie's about. It's not about how that situation resolves itself. It's all about Luis and Hannah and their relationship and what the consequences of learning the heptapod language and what that means for Luis and for her relationship with Ian, because no surprise, Ian is the father of the girl Hannah, who has been in all these flash forwards. And that's what this movie is about to me. 100%. So, all that stuff, like I can forgive all the kind of cheesy stuff, like the guys who go in and blow up the heptapods. So the two heptapods, I'm assuming each one has two heptapods. They're called Abbott and Costello. They just give them these names because they think it's funny. And these guys go in and they set a bomb. And this is right after the whole give weapon thing. And these guys have been indoctrinated by, Alex Limbaugh. And they set a bomb, but Ian and Luis go back to get clarification, which is the point where they give them the actual weapon, which is one of 12 pieces of a Rosetta Stone that will teach humanity the heptapod language. And then there's an explosion. Right before the explosion, Costello they do this thing where they do what like a squid when it's under attack does, where they like flip their tentacles and they go off in a cloud of ink, but there's no cloud of ink.
Yeah.
He runs away and Abbott dies in the explosion while getting Ian and Luis out of the ship. Those guys are really, really poorly developed, and their whole thing is poorly developed. And, it could be a time thing. But like you see one of them on the phone and his family's very stressed. And then you see him or another one of those guys listening to the Limbaugh type.
And it doesn't help that they've all got the same fatigues and army cut, and they're all just bland looking white guys. And I couldn't tell who was who. And that was not the most well drawn part of the movie.
Totally. And, there are aspects of this movie that I really like that aren't related to that central theme for me. I think I wrote up here light sci-fi / dense sci-fi, which I think is a theme that is becoming a big part of modern cinema and television, where you have this sort of like the sci-fi stuff is like, whatever. Like, we got some sci-fi stuff. We're not going to go to huge pains to explain it. We got spaceships. We're going
to hand wave the science.
And sometimes they're going to be they're going to give explanations, but it's sort of hard sci-fi in the way that it's all very practical and it's not Star Wars and fantasy adjacent. And to me, I call all that stuff light sci-fi because it's not focusing on the sci-fi. It's not like, we got to, like Star Trek is not light sci-fi, because they're like, well, the dilithium crystals are going to be injected with the hydronium gas at 14 psi. Like, they're very specific, and all their technology has a purpose and makes sense. And all this, so I categorize this in what I call light sci-fi, where like the sci-fi is not the movie.
Yeah.
But then I also call it dense sci-fi because it is a sci-fi story that is extremely narrative dense. So it's like, I know, and that's like that's just a me thing. That's not anybody's categorization but me. But the in-joke between us is I always made fun of the show Heroes. Yeah. Because it was basically just like Dawson's Creek set against the backdrop of superheroes. Yeah. And the superhero stuff is not what you're focusing on. And that's, at that time, I wanted more focus on the superhero stuff and less focus on Jill and Joe's relationship and who was going to date who and who was going to be mad at who for whatever. Yeah. I didn't want all that drama superimposed over. And movies like this, they do that in such a masterful way where they're like, yeah, we got a cool sci-fi setting, also a really human story that the sci-fi is here to enhance.
Kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So, I need a better term for it, but I call it light, dense sci-fi.
Well, I know I get the light and dense. Like, did you see that show Timeless that I really liked, where it was...
I mean, I saw bits and pieces of you watching it.
Yeah. Like, they never explained time travel. And they would explain it when there was a mechanical problem. They'd be like, the gonecticozoink isn't connected to the flux capacitor anymore, blah, 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 but otherwise, the science was like very much only there when it was convenient. So, I consider that light sci-fi versus... I don't know, 2001 maybe?
Yeah, 2001, like... Star Trek, like when the sci-fi is part of what matters. Yeah. Like when the technology, like you can be telling a story that's timeless, like Star Wars is telling it's just King Arthur. It's just several different Kurosawa Japanese samurai movies set against this fantasy stuff. Like, and it's a thin line, and it's like, I know it when I see it. But the sci-fi stuff, they can flub all that. The timey-wimey stuff, they can flub all that. And it doesn't, for me, diminish the theme of the movie. And the main thing, like the main point of what's going on, which is an extremely personal story. I mean, like, I don't want to, I don't know how much there is, because once we start into the thing that I really want to talk about, there isn't a lot more to talk about. It kind of, to me, it's sort of that's the finale of the podcast.
Knowing us, I feel like we can get blood from that stone.
Yeah, no, I don't. We could talk about it for an hour, but I'm just trying to think, like, is there anything else related to like the movie or the aesthetics. I mean, I think.
Oh, can we talk about Forrest Whitaker's magical
his sometime
reappearing Boston accent?
Boston accent. Yeah, there's a couple of guys who have that kind.
Yeah,
and they're in Montana, so it's not like it is.
We got the local army here.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny when actors make a choice like that. You know, like first, you know, we got this. His name's Weber, so it's not like it's O'Doul or something, or O'Houlihan or something.
First of all, it's Forrest Whitaker.
It's also Forrest Whitaker, right? Right. But it's so interesting that he chose to play that.
Well, hold on. Is he from Boston originally?
I don't know.
Well, look it up.
Well, it could be like a Tom Holland thing. Like, why did Tom Holland have an English accent for this whole movie? That was his real.
Right. Yeah, he's an accent for everything else. And this
is the one time he's
real
not.
One. I'm trying to think. I don't know where he's from.
Well, I'm looking it up, so stall for time.
I can't remember if he's had a Boston accent in anything else. Well, the funny thing is, it's not. I don't have a good ear for a Boston accent, but it wasn't in everything. It was just a couple of words. You know, he'd be like, "When I park over there."
He's from Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He'd just be like, "Yeah, like we brought you guys here in the car."
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then I would hear it in everybody else.
Other
like Amy Adams would have a line like. Yeah. You know, can you get me some coffee? Well, coffee? That's not even I don't know.
Yeah, that's not.
I don't, like I said, I don't have an ear for Boston accent, but it would just jump out at me. So, yeah, it's the drinking game. Forrest Whitaker's Boston accent. You will be blitzed by the end.
It's so funny when it comes out.
The other thing. Sorry.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So the heptapods. Yeah, really the squid thing that you mentioned is apt because they're like squid tentacles and they spit out this ink that forms this. It looks like a coffee ring.
It does kind of look like a coffee stain.
But I also was thinking it looked like, and it's been a while since I've seen this, so maybe my memory's fuzzy. It looked like something from The Ring, the movie The Ring.
Kind of.
So part of me was like, is this doom coming out of that? But then that was dropped quickly. But it looks more like a coffee ring. Yeah,
the heptapods designs are very interesting because you only see them through this like maybe 15-foot tall window that's in the spaceship. And the spaceship itself is very interesting. The design of it's very cool.
Bigger on the inside.
Kind of.
It looks like a Pringle from the outside.
Yeah, exactly. It's not it's not symmetrical from every angle. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at it straight on, it's symmetrical. But if you look at it from the side, it's concave on one side. Or what it's convex, whatever. It's like it has a bulge to it, like a Pringle.
On one side, it's convex on the other.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. How do you then refer to if I have a piece of glass that's concave, but I'm looking at it from the convex side?
The greater than and the lesser than symbols, I can never remember because I'm like it points to the one that's lesser, but it'll when you have something that's like symbol 3, I'm like, is it? Show me what's on the other side. Right. I don't know. I can't do greater and lesser if I don't see both. Anyway,
right.
This has been your Daily Minute on why I'm not a math major. Anyway,
yes.
So,
so it's got a really cool design, and there's this whole thing where they enter from the bottom of the ship, but then gravity shifts so that they're walking on the side of the ship. So their backs are to the ground.
Yeah,
and they're walking up. But of course, because of gravity, it's relative. They're not walking up.
And the shaft is open at the bottom, which is really trippy.
Right. Yeah. So if you look back, you just see the ground down below you, like you could fall all the way out. And the heptapods they look like if you were making a thing from the Addams Family with your hand,
but with two extra
fingers. Digits. Yeah, and they sort of walk around like that, and then the tips of their fingers open up into like 8 more or 6 more tentacles.
They kind of look like the sand creatures from Dune, actually.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
No vagina blood.
No.
But
so and then of course you only see them from this one perspective. Near the end of the movie, she sees one in full,
and they're way taller.
They're way like that is just a small part. So most of the ship is like the clearance for their head because they're like 30 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So it's really just like the ship is this entry door and a little room where they can talk with a window in it, and like the rest of it is just like the clearance for these guys' giant bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So like the design on them is really cool. The design on the ship is great because it's so minimalist. It's very purposely hearkening to the monolith in 2001.
I got the impression that because there's 12 of these all over the earth, I got the impression that they all fit together like slices of an orange.
Yeah, I mean, they could.
Like they all got to, about Mars, and they're like, okay, split up.
Yeah, like you could make a sphere or
Meet
something
back
if you kind
here.
of put them all together, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just the design on this stuff, like just Villeneuve, whatever, he's got a great eye. I think he's got a great team. Like all directors who have a style, they have a director of photography, they have a production team that they work with that gets them and just understands their aesthetic. And this is just so much his aesthetic. Like this is one of the movies that uses CGI the best because it's just not noticeable at all. Like when you first see the ship, it's just this, big egg looking thing. And there are these clouds just pouring over the hillside, and fog and clouds are like a theme for the whole thing, taking humanity out of its fog and all this stuff.
I kind of wondered, was that natural fog, or did it come with the ship, or did they put in fog to prevent people from the military put in fog to prevent people from seeing it?
And the movie isn't interested in answering any of those questions.
Sure.
It's just like, look how cool this looks.
There's fog.
And there could be any reason why this is here. It could be natural. It could be the aliens. It could be man-made. But here it is. It looks awesome. And like, that's like like a bunch of that CGI and stuff, of course, to get the right look. But yeah, just it's aesthetically just has a great look. Even the way it's shot, like this is a huge movie that's about the fate of the whole world, but so many of the shots are close in on one or two actors with heavy depth of field, so everything behind them is blurred. Like even there are some scenes where they sit and they talk near the ship, and the ship is just, it's in depth of field blur in the background. And it's like visually saying, yes, this is happening, but here's what's important right here in front of the camera. These two people, these two humans who are having a discussion, or when Louise is first entering the base, there's all sorts of activity behind her, but it's all blurred out and she's the stark focus. And it also contributes to things like the beginning of the movie when she's walking in and she's kind of in a haze. She's focused, but everything else behind her is blurred. Like it's so well made. Like it just makes you realize that there are these handful of directors like working right now, like David Fincher and Denny here. And so, a handful of others, Nolan and Paul Thomas Anderson. And these are guys that they just understand filmmaking in such a way that it's like where, like, not to disparage Quentin Tarantino, but where he'll put the camera on six guys sitting around a table and depend on the dialogue to make it. And he's less concerned with the filmmaking. Not that he's doesn't have amazing filmmaking tricks in his quiver and all this stuff, but he's less concerned about using the filmmaking as a tool than he is about the words that are written and the interactions between people and all that sort of different stuff. And that's one of the really striking things about this movie that really made me anticipate like the Blade Runner movie that Villeneuve did. And of course, Dune, which he just released and is going to release the second part. Cause it's just, he's just such a master of the craft of filmmaking. And it's the sort of stuff that were I 14, 15, 16 years old, like would be so inspiring to me in the same way that directors like Terry Gilliam and Quentin Tarantino and these other guys and Ridley Scott in the 80s and 90s and stuff, like in the way that they were back then. So it's just great to like take it in, and especially on a second or third viewing, like this has been for me, you just see this stuff and you start to make all these connections and all this subtext that isn't there, all this stuff that you can put in a book. Louise walks through the common room of her college and everything's in a haze and she's not paying attention to anything around her. You put that in front of an actor and they're going to give you everything that they can give you, but then you can layer on this additional bit of filmmaking. And it's just I'm just in awe of it. And like, every time I see stuff like that, I'm always like, man, that could have been me. Like if I had been more serious about it and like really, cause there were times where I was writing screenplays in my late teens and early 20s where I was like, shopping around for cheap, like actual like 16 millimeter cameras, you know, and I never had the money to do it. And I never had the people around me to help me with it. And, you know, like I think about a version of me that got all that stuff done in his teens and is now in his 40s making, you know, crazy movies like this. You know, I don't know. Too much talking. I gotta wet the whistle. Wet the whistle. Yeah, and this is just going to be one of those episodes where I just talk and talk and talk because I just love this movie. So it's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, it's a great movie overall. I mean, I think for me that's sort of everything I want to say. The music is great, not in the way that you would play it in your house because sometimes it's just like
it's very moody.
It's just someone pressing on a G on a keyboard. It just, and then there's like some semblance of woodwind in the background.
It's very affecting, yeah.
But it hits
it's
exactly.
appropriate for the scene that it's.
And sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you need a soundtrack like The Crow that is full of nu metal bangers that get all the goth kids to go crazy. And sometimes you just need, you know, some guy with a synth and, you know, a economy of notes.
Yeah.
So
to the elephant in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what?
The end, which I know is what affected you the most.
It's not just the end. That's the thing. Yeah. This movie is super affecting. It's the second or third time. It might be the third time. I'm not sure that I'm watching it. And because of the structure that we outlined in the beginning, the fact that the movie sets you up to believe that Louise is recovering from losing a child only to find out that she hasn't even had this child yet. Makes it very affecting the second time through. Like when you know who Kaiser Soze is,
right.
You watch the whole movie differently.
Yeah. When you know that Tyler Durden is a figment.
Right. You watch, you watch the whole movie differently and things look very different to you when you watch the movie that way. And they should, they should. Yeah. So, I mean, what was I don't want to put anything into your, how did you perceive the resolution of this movie, the quote unquote twist and the whole thing?
I'm trying to think of when I started to figure it out. It kind of all came together at the end. Well, when they, I don't remember if they'd said the daughter's name before, but when they were like, "Oh, why is my name Hannah?" Because it's the same forwards and backwards. I was like, yeah, okay, you know. And at the beginning, I said to you, so we've seen these early things that we think are flashbacks, and then we see her walking into the classroom, and I said to you, so we've we've lost the husband, and you were like, well. He's not here now.
Yeah, it'll be explained, basically.
Yeah. And I may have been, I don't know. I'm not sure when I figured it out, but it was sort of putting several things together.
Yeah, and this movie, I don't think this movie is intended to be a Sixth Sense, zoom out, and Bloodstain.
Dramatic chipmunk.
Right, yeah. I think it's kind of a, here are the breadcrumbs, figure it out whenever you can.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But yeah, for me, what this movie comes down to, and the thing that makes it emotional for me as a parent, but just as a human being, is first of all, so now you know your future. Mm-hmm. So this brings up all kinds of questions that I hand wave for movies like this because I don't care. If you know your future, can you change it? Mm-hmm. You know, all that sort of stuff. Forget about it. I'm taking the movie.
And it's a rare disease that is unstoppable. So there's no curing the disease.
Right, which is very different from the short story where it's a climbing accident. Yeah. And even the screenwriter, kind of said why wouldn't you just not let her go climbing? Yeah. Right. So this way there's no getting around it. Mm-hmm. And so the central choice that Louise has to make, it ends up being two choices, but the central choice she has to make is, now I know this is going to happen. Do I do it? Mm-hmm. Do I have a child that I know will die and go through all of the pain of losing a child? Or what if could I just stop it? Mm-hmm. I could just stop all of her pain by never giving birth.
Yeah. And that is an impossible question, honestly.
Right.
We discussed this in one of my other book clubs because we had a book about, it was kind of like alternate timelines for your life. And those of us who were parents were like, I don't think I could choose an alternate timeline in which my child didn't exist.
Yeah.
Never mind what I want to avoid, what mistakes I want to not make, what, whatever. If I snap my fingers and this child doesn't exist, I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. In this case, there's the pain involved, and I would really like to avoid that pain. But you could argue by knowing that it would happen, she's experienced the pain anyway.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I plead the fifth there.
Right.
Know.
Well, right. And that's the thing. I mean, I think she makes the choice to go through with it. You assume.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way the movie ends. And, then, like I said, if you want to micro analyze the movie, like, did she have any other choice? Whatever. Mm-hmm. What version of fate exists and temporal whatever exists in this universe that this movie set in? Who knows? Is it predestined? Because that's effectively what I think was sort of the thesis of the book, that things are predestined. And this is going to happen. And that's why it didn't matter in the book that it was a climbing accident, in the short story, that it was a climbing accident, because it was destined to happen either way. And the movie frames it much more as a choice, a literal, like, she gets a literal moment to choose when she is with Ian, and she's had all these flashes, and she now understands the heptapods tell her, we've given you the weapon. The weapon is our language, and the weapon is time. Louise sees the future. Mm-hmm. They tell her, and she sees everything. She knows what's going to happen. She has a literal choice. There's a literal moment where he says, "Let's make a baby," and she smiles and says, "Let's, yes," or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she had a literal moment where she could have said no and stopped it right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, so there's a scene in one of the flashes, flash forward, flashback, whichever, where she has to explain to Hannah why her dad
This is what
left.
I was going to bring up next. Yeah.
And she says, I had to tell him something that I knew was going to happen, and he got really angry. Why would you not? I can't imagine not telling your partner that from the beginning.
Well, right. So that's the second question. I said there were two. It brings up two things. Right. That's the second thing. Would you tell your partner if you knew that this was that you were going to be in a relationship that was going to result in a child that was going to die in their teens? Would you tell them from the beginning
150%
that was going to happen?
Yes.
Right. And what's what is the right thing to do? Would they, I mean, in this case, I would say, would they believe you? But in this case, he would believe her.
Because he knows where you got it from.
Right. He knows. But to me, the more interesting question is when she's explaining to Hannah what happened, she says, I knew something that was going to happen, and I told him, and he said I made the wrong choice. Mm. Does he mean the choice to tell him or the choice to have the baby? That to me is the more interesting question. Yeah. And I don't know if you get to learn enough about Ian to know for sure.
Not really. He's clearly just there to be the guy.
Sure. But I think he's a scientist. He's a realist. I wonder if his side of the coin is not, you made the wrong choice telling me this. You made the wrong choice doing it at all.
I would suspect, yes.
Because she could have, the other option is she could have not told him and he could have experienced it in real time, to which then the conversation would have been, did you know this was going to happen? Because he knows what she has received as a result of the...
Well, yeah, I think telling your partner this after the child is already born is the worst possible way to do it. You either tell them before the child is conceived or you don't tell them ever.
Right. Because there's enough preamble that we see of them happy with the baby that that she told him after the baby was born.
Yeah.
And there's a heartbreaking line that the girl just Daddy doesn't look at me the same way anymore since he left, because he knows she's going to die.
Yeah.
Right. And then that is, is it your responsibility to share that, or does it forever alter the way that you look at someone if you now know they're on a ticking clock? It just, that whole, as a thought experiment or whatever, like that whole situation of, because I just wrote, would you, like the first would you being, would you go through with it? And I think any parent would say, absolutely. It doesn't matter. Absolutely. And I think you make a valid point of like, she's already felt that hurt, but now she's going to feel it again. She's felt it. She's remembered it. And
it's not like you're saving yourself from anything, really.
Right. But she's remembering it, and remembering something is, you remember the last time you remembered it.
True.
You don't really remember the thing. So yeah, it's going to be different when she actually experiences it. Yeah. Could she save herself? And I mean, I think once you know that she hasn't already lost a child, it recontextualizes Louise as a character that just is like zombie walking through life and just isn't living and isn't embracing life and, living it to its fullest. And because what you thought she was is someone who was doing that and then had that taken from her.
Yeah.
And so she becomes this character that grows and chooses to embrace life, even with the pain that comes with it. And, and live and, love Ian and have Hannah and go through all these things that are what being alive is, right? Like pain is part of the process.
I don't know. If you are a careful listener to our last, 10 episodes or so, you may have noticed that I have made reference to grief and various things. My mom died several months ago, and I have kind of asked myself, is it worth it to love somebody if you have the pain of losing them? And it's not like you have a choice about that with your parents, because hopefully you love them intensely from your childhood. But I don't know, like the pain of losing somebody that fucks you up. I don't know if I would choose that. I don't know what balances that.
Yeah, I mean, what you hope balances it is all of the happy memories.
Well, right now that does not feel like a good trade.
Sure.
I mean, I had 44 pretty well, let's take out my teens. I had 30 good years sprinkled in there.
Sure. Yeah.
And right now I'm going on 5 months of feeling like a zombie. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think if you ask my dad, he would say, and I can never let him listen to this episode now. I don't think he listens to us.
No.
I think he would say, yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, and
I don't know.
To me, this is what this movie is supposed to do. Like, it's supposed to make you think about that stuff. And then, because it's easy to say that for a fictional character, but then like you're doing now, you start to contextualize it within your own life and your own experiences. And, does your answer change to the question in the movie?
Yeah. I would not ask this of someone who had lost a child, but I would be curious to know what their answer was. Based on, like I said, my book club's discussion about this, we all were like, oh God, no.
Yeah. No, it's and to me, like, this movie the first time through had me in tears, and the same thing this time. It's worse for me. It was worse the second time because you've got all the context, you understand everything, you see all the stuff happening in it. So there's this more of a slow burn that builds up to the end, and you can see the choices and you can see everything building, and so at the payoff at the end, it's just so much worse for me the second time through. Because, even the first time, it still was the same feeling for me, but knowing the pain you're going to go through, and knowing she says it in one of the flashbacks. She said to Hannah, that she's unstoppable with her dance and her poetry and these, you realize that those are the things you're robbing the world of. You're robbing every person who would have an interaction with her of that interaction and how that would affect their life for better or worse. That you're, by making the choice not to go forward and experience that, you're changing the path forward for so many people who are touched by even someone who only lives 15 years. And that how we all touch all these different people in our lives, and our tendrils, like the heptapod's tendrils, they branch out into so many people and touch so many different people, that even removing one person who's on the planet for 16 or 17 years has this cascading effect. And knowing that she realizes that, and she understands how powerful Hannah's life is, even as short as it is, that she has to go through. Like, in the context of the movie, I don't think she has a choice.
That sounds like an argument for don't ever control your fertility, have as many children as your sex life and your body allow.
Well, you're extrapolating, I think, my point out in the wrong direction. Well, I'm talking about it.
That's where, I get,
I'm not invalidating.
Where my mind went.
I'm not invalidating what you're saying. What I'm saying is, your scenario doesn't involve any foreknowledge. This scenario involves foreknowledge. She knows who she's robbing of all these things. She knows who she'll touch. Because like it's a pointless circular argument to say you should have every kid you can, because each kid could be the next Einstein or president of
always
the
in those
world
arguments,
or whatever.
It's the person who's going to cure cancer. You
can't
no
cure
one is
cancer,
ever
right.
like, I could be the next Putin.
He's going to be the employee of the month at the 7-Eleven 3 times in a row. He's going to work there for 30 years.
Everyone's going to have really good slushies.
Right. Like 7 people are going to come to his funeral when he dies. And yeah, but I'm saying, like, I get your point. What I'm saying is, with the knowledge of exactly what that person's going to do, I think the discussion takes on a totally different context. When you know this person is literally going to be the next Putin or the next Gandhi or whatever, you know the lives they're going to touch, because now Louise has lived that future.
Yeah. So your point is the word unstoppable was not a random choice of words.
Right. She's right. Exactly.
There was literally no choice.
She had no choice, because she understood the people that were going to be touched and the lives that were going to be changed directly, not theoretically. Like, what if, don't have every kid you can because one of them might touch someone in the right way. She literally knew.
It's a bit of a known quantity. Okay.
Right. She literally, she knows 100% what she's denying the world.
Yeah.
If she doesn't have the baby.
Well, and she says this. Well, I guess at that point she didn't, but she makes this choice, whatever it is, to have Hannah the second time.
Yeah.
After having lived through Hannah's teenage years, I cracked up in the flash forwards in the beginning. You start with Hannah as an infant and then go through the toddler and the school age and the teen years, and then she gets whatever it is. And she goes immediately from 8 or 9 year old lying in bed and says, I love you. Yeah. And then a teenage face, I hate you. And I was like, yep, that tracks. As a girl, yep.
But I also think as our cat is very thorough in covering up his poop in the background.
I don't think you needed to explain that.
Just in case you heard that was our cat covering up his poop.
Too much information. Anyway.
But notice in the flashbacks, there are far more happy flashbacks than there are bad flashbacks. And I think even considering that she dies of incurable disease X, and I think that's so matches up with everyone's experience of life. Like, you think back about your experience with someone and you remember the bad things, but they so outweighed by the good.
Well, yes. I mean, I have been remembering only the good about, well, mostly the good about my mom for the past 5 months. And you have very kindly stood back and bitten your tongue and not said, well, I remember that time,
Your mom was a saint.
She was a very good lady.
She never physically assaulted me.
Oh, good grief.
She many times seemed to want to.
She just didn't like that you weren't Catholic.
I wasn't Catholic, wasn't well educated, was Southern, was rough around the edges. So many things.
Yeah.
But it's turned out okay.
But I feel like I am an example of that. You remember the good and not so much the bad.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but that's, I like this movie for that dense sci-fi that it is a human story. It makes you think. Like I said, I easily look past all the timey-wimey stuff. The fact that the entire resolution of the movie relies on her learning the heptapod language so that she can see something that she sees someone telling her about something she did minutes from now, but 18 months in the future, and getting that information and then doing it now. Yeah. Like it's all very sort of, it's like an episode of the X-Files or Fringe or, some, hammy sci-fi show or whatever.
That's not my favorite sci-fi trope, but
just like whatever. Like this movie could have ended with the aliens just leaving and would still meant as much to me. I do want, the last thing I want to highlight is my favorite line from the movie where it's right at the end and she embraces with Ian and she says, I forgot how good it felt to be held by you. Mm-hmm. They've never embraced before. Just like, that's just such a great moment of like,
well, and he doesn't pull back and go, what the hell?
What the hell? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just love that moment, that because at the same time, it's like you could play it off as just this familiarity of whatever. And you can say, oh, I'm sure you hugged me when I was feeling bad that one time or whatever, but it's just such a great line. It's just, it's right at that right moment, and just, that's my favorite line.
His line before that, and now I don't remember exactly, but I spent all my time looking up at the stars.
Yes,
I learned more about you, and not a Jeremy Renner fan, but that would do it.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one.
But yeah, I don't know what I expected out of this episode, but there it is. It happened. We talked about one of my favorite. I would put this in like easily my top 10, like my top 5 sci-fi movies for sure. Because I love this trend that this movie didn't start it, but this trend that's been going on of movies like this, using sci-fi which really sci-fi has kind of always been some level of this, but using it to really talk about the human condition and real human emotions and real things.
Yeah. It's not full on its own genre it's a cross-pollination of a whole lot of concepts.
Yeah, but I mean,
together.
Star Trek has been doing this for years. Like, we've got these aliens and they're coming across our intergalactic border and we've got to send them back. And, then Picard says engage and then everything's fine.
Yeah. Well,
so it's not as if sci-fi has not been tackling real issues and real emotion, but lately it's been getting
or
more frequent.
To use a phrase that I use often, that this is sci-fi the way that Friday Night Lights is about football.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, which, like I said, for me, going from hating heroes and not even being willing to give it a chance because it wasn't enough about superheroes, to this recent, last 5 or 10 years of movies like this.
I keep thinking you're going to say to loving heroes because something, but no. Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Nope. I have no horse in the game. Horse in the game. Horse in the race.
You loved Heroes.
I watched the first season or maybe 2, but I didn't hang on to it.
You cried when the writer's strike happened and they couldn't have the second season.
Is that what happened? Oh.
You cried. I had to bring you.
I did cry at the end of Friday Night Lights. That's, again.
Did the lights go out?
It did. Because they won the state championship.
Did I just write that whole show? Every Friday night, the lights come on.
That's the night. That's the night that the lights went out in Dillon, Texas.
Then at the end of the series, we turn the lights out.
feel like I had just thought of one other thing that I wanted to say and then I lost it. Damn.
Oh, well.
Oh.
This is a great movie. Watch it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I know what it was. Just to be clear, I don't have any foreknowledge of our child having an incurable disease.
Okay, good.
Or of myself or of you.
Or anyone around. How about any of the cats?
No.
No, okay.
No. If any one of us has an incurable disease, I did not know about it.
Okay, good. I plead the fifth.
So that's why you put the life insurance policy that lasted exactly 9.5 years.
To the minute.
You were like, I'm not going to need the 10. No, just 9.5 is good.
Can I prorate this to an exact date? I got it down to the minute here.
I've seen. One could say, by the way, that Final Destination has a hand in this. No matter what she chooses for her daughter, death is going to get her. She's decided.
This is true. Get a little punchy at the end here. Jeez.
I'm just saying. That's one of those movies that I've never seen. I feel like I'm a smidge too old for that to be a generational must. Didn't that come out in like 99?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we're just old enough. Different. I was like 19 and 20 years old.
20, yeah.
Well, it depends on when in 1999. I was 20. I was 19 at some point.
I was all of 22. I was old. I was a grown up.
I mean, yeah, you were basically retired at that point.
Yeah. But the point is, like death comes for you no matter what.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there it is. That's Arrival. Death comes for us all.
Right.
That's the tagline. Everybody remembers that tagline for Arrival. Death comes for us all. Yeah. Watch it. It's great. If you listen to this and you hadn't watched it,
then sorry we spoiled it for you. Bring tissues.
Well, maybe.
Have them handy.
Yeah, just in case.
You never know.
Some people have Marion's stone cold heart, and others don't.
I was so confused. I was like, "Why are you crying? Why? What's upsetting you? I don't understand."
What is human emotion?
I cried during Little Women. I probably will cry next week.
Oh Lord. Too. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of that, do you want to go into the
So this month, we are doing After the First Date.
There's probably been a pre-roll for a couple of episodes. Maybe
Who
not.
Knows?
I don't know if I recorded.
We don't know because we did it in the future.
Exactly.
And we don't know. We're doing movies that came out after the first date, but we still have not watched together. And so next time, and we're doing it every week this month, folks.
Crazy.
Next time I am hosting and I am showing Dave Lady Bird. Mothers and Daughters. If I don't cry, it's something, I don't know.
All right.
I will be surprised if I do not. So we're talking about Lady Bird. But listen, folks, back to Arrival. We would love to know what you think about Arrival. What would you have chosen? Do you find Jeremy Renner kind of off-putting? Do you also love character actor Michael Stuhlbarg? Are you from Boston? Can you tell us what's up with Forrest Whitaker's accent? I don't know. Tell us what you think. You can tweet at us or you can send us an email. Our handle is the same at Twitter and Gmail. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. And we're also on Facebook. We're coming into 2009 with Facebook. So, and really right now it's just, links to the podcast on there, but there could be other stuff. You never know. We might get a wild hair. It's in the future. We don't know yet. So look for us there at the page is You Show Me Yours or look for YSMY Podcast. And we are typically new episodes every other week, every other Wednesday. For this month only, it's every week, but no matter when you're listening to this, 2 weeks from today, you can look for a new episode. We are available on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts. And while you're there downloading the latest episode, we would love if you would rate, review, and subscribe. That makes sure that you will get the latest episode in your queue, and also it helps promote the podcast to other people. Speaking of promoting it to other people, tell your friends, even if it's just one. It makes us happy. It makes our future selves happy and our past selves happy.
Yeah, all at once.
Yeah. And our present selves most happy, really. Yeah. So that's been Arrival.
Yes.
We will see you next time with Lady Bird and possibly me sobbing. I don't know. We'll see. That should be fun, right? You've always wanted to listen to a 44-year-old woman cry, right? Well,
yes,
there you go. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, folks. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. For a 44-year-old woman sobbing, that's someone's kink for sure.
Well, that's what I should do. Why am I working a regular job? I could make money off of that.
It's your OnlyFans started.
Right. Just sitting there sobbing.
Just feet pics and crying.
With onions.
It's got to be real. I can't get off if it's not real emotional
Maybe the crying
pain.
with the onions is the real kink.
Yeah, somebody.
It's like kink is like an onion. There's so many layers to it.